everyone, welcome to chapter 4. Before I begin this chapter, I just want to tell you about this module. In this module, you are going to have an assignment and also a quiz. The quiz will be from chapter 1 to, not this chapter. So the quiz will cover chapter 1, 2, and we didn't cover, not 2, chapter 1 and 3. We didn't cover chapter 2. So it will be chapter 1 and 3, and also chapter 4, of course, will not be included. Chapter 4 will not be included in the quiz. So it will be just from chapter 1 and 3. So let's begin with the information security policy, and let's see why do we need to have a policy in an organization. Some of the things that you will learn in this chapter, after you finish this chapter, you are going to learn about the information policy, what it is, and kind of understand the components of information policy and why would we need to have that in a organization. You will be able to also explain 3 major types of information security policy, and also you should be able to discuss some of the components of all those information security policies. You should be able to also learn what is needed in order to implement an effective policy in an organization, and also you should be able to discuss the process of developing, implementing, and maintaining various types of information security policy in a company. So let's see, what is a policy? Why do we need to have a policy in our organization? If you, maybe some of you have heard about Enron scandal, which was in 2001. Basically, this company, the chief executive officers and some of the top managers, they have lied about the profit and loss of the company to the shareholders, and they concealed a lot of information from the shareholders and kind of, were in some kind of a scandal. There was a company that was auditing this company, and that was Arthur Andersen, which is a very big organization, and they do auditing of the companies. They also realized that there is something going on, but they kind of concealed that as well. And they actually destroyed some of the information that could have helped the lawmakers to kind of make the Enron scandal kind of obvious to everybody and kind of protect the shareholders from this scandal. But Arthur Andersen company also shredded a lot of information regarding the company's clients and files and things like that, and they actually claimed that that was part of their policy, like that's what they had in their policy. But they were not following this policy consistently. They only did it actually when they heard about, they are being actually they are also being audited by the lawmakers. So they actually also hide some of the information and didn't provide that. But because they had it in their policy, they couldn't be really accountable for that. So basically, policy is the essential foundation of an effective information security program. In order for us to protect the programs in the organization, it all depends to the policy that we generate, and also the attitude of the management towards making that policy that kind of consists of a securing information systems. Basically, the employees and the policymakers, they can set the tone and emphasize on how important a role of information security is in the policy. The primary responsibility of the people who are working in the information security department is to making sure that those information security policy are are organized in a way that they are focusing on reducing the risk, and also their objective is to be compliant with law and regulations in order for the company to have the information integrity and confidentiality. So why policy? Because we need to have some sort of equality in our program. Equality information security programs begins and ends with the policy. Basically, policies are the least expensive means of control, and but sometimes they are very difficult to implement, because a lot of policy makers, they might not know about different laws and things that are out there, and they might not be very familiar with the rules of the organization as well. So in order to implement a policy, some rules must be followed when we are sharing a policy. So a policy should never conflict with the law. That means you kind of need to know the law very well, so the policy shouldn't be conflicting with that law. Policy must be able to stand up in court if it's challenged. And also, policy must be properly supported and kind of administrated. So it's true that you could have a policy in an organization, but if nobody is kind of supporting it and managing it, then that policy might not be effective. Policies are actually difficult to implement, but according to Berggren and Berbrew, some of the guidelines can help in the formation of IT policies. First, all policies must contribute to the success of the organization. The management, they have a big responsibility in order to support the policy. So they must also ensure the adequate sharing of responsibility for proper use of information systems. Also, in the policy, end users of information systems should also be involved in the policy formation. So it's not only the managers that they need to kind of sit down and write down the policy, they need to also see it from the perspectives of end users. This is actually the bullseye model. Bullseye model, which is an implementation model that actually emphasizes the role of policies in information security. This is actually widely used mechanism in the information security, and it focuses on 4 different layers: policies, network, systems, and application. In this model, actually all the issues are starting from policies. So first layer of defense is policies. The next one is the networks, which are those threats that meet the organization network. Then the third layer is systems, which deals with computers and manufacturing systems. And then is application, all of the application systems that are in the organizations. So policies are basically an important reference document for internal audits and for resolution of legal disputes about the management due diligence. So this was the case in terms of the Enron scandal. Policy document can act as a clear statement of what the management has intent to do for the organization. So let's maybe you have heard about policies, standards, and practices and procedures. Let's find out what are the differences between each of these. Basically, policy is a set of organizational guidelines that dictate certain behavior within the organizations. A standard is a detailed statement of what must be done to comply with the policy, sometimes viewed as the rules governing policy compliance. The guidelines are non-mandatory recommendations. So basically, guideline is just not mandatory. And employee, they can use it as a reference to comply with the policy. Procedures are basically step-by-step instructions that are designed to help the employees following those policies, standards, and guidelines. And practices are examples of actions that illustrates compliance with the policies. So we have various best practices maybe in the organization that could set an example how to comply with the policies. Basically, policies, they define what we can do and what we cannot do, versus other documents is how to do them. So policies basically it just defines what we can do, but the other ones like the standards and guidelines and procedures, how we have to do it, like a step-by-step instructions, for example, or maybe it's like recommendations or things like that. So for policies, in order for it to be effective in an organization, it has to be properly disseminated, so all the people in the organization should be aware of this policy. It should be readable. It should be understandable by people in the organization. It has to be something that people are agreeing to, and it has to be uniformly enforced. So you are either following the policy or you're not. So that is very important for the management part to support that policy so that it is uniformly enforced in the whole organization. So basically in here you can see the policy which they are being sanctioned by the management. Standards, which we talked about, they are detailing minimum specification for the compliance. Guidelines is basically not mandatory. It's just recommendation to compliance, and procedure are step-by-step instruction of the compliance. And practices is basically what is the best practice that you can set it as example to implement the policy. So policies also, it's when you are developing that, you need to constantly modify and maintain the policies. So sometimes the policy could go out of date, so you need to be able to modify it and also maintain it. So in order to produce a complete information security policies, management, they have to define 3 types of information security policy. These are basically based on NIST, National Institute of Standard, which is the publication called SP 800-14. You can actually look this publication on NIST website. They have a lot of different policies regarding information security. Basically, the 3 types of information security policy: one that regards to enterprise information security program policy, another one issue specific information security policy, and another one system specific policy. So each of these 3 policies are basically are found in most of the organizations, and they are usually creating the enterprise information security program policy first, and then they will create the general security policy needs in terms of issuing a specific information security policy and system specific policy. So they are starting it with the higher level, which is enterprise information security program policy, and underneath it they will include those other 2. So this is it for the first part of the video. The next video will talk about enterprise information security policy, which is at the higher level, which we will discuss in the next part of the video. For now, take care.